Hello everyone, welcome to BAJIRAO IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. So today we have few important editorials and news articles from both the Hindu and Indian Express newspaper. So we will discuss all those important news articles one by one because those news articles are very important for your examination point of view, and in this analysis we will be covering the multiple dimensions of the same news article by making them relevant for your examinations. So before actually discussing all those news articles, so please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button so that we can come up with such content, more innovative content in future. So in similar to every lecture we have been discussing and I've been giving the previous year questions also, previous year questions and current affairs question in every session. Okay, so yesterday also I have given one previous question with respect to the green hydrogen. So day before yesterday also I have given a question on green hydrogen. I hope all of you have understood about green hydrogen, gray hydrogen, blue hydrogen, because the green hydrogen and other forms of hydrogen are very important for your examination perspectives. So because of that reason, hydrogen is in continuously in news and it is a very important thing. So the question was, which of the following is the nodal authority responsible for accrediting agencies for monitoring, verifying and certifying green hydrogen production projects in India? So the correct answer for this question is option C, Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So Bureau of Energy Efficiency has given the responsibility to accrediting, monitoring and verifying, certifying the green hydrogen production projects in different parts of our country. So if you look at the explanation for this, yesterday I have already told you what exactly is green hydrogen. Okay, so green hydrogen is produced through a process called electrolysis. So in this process of electrolysis, we separate hydrogen from the water, because we all know about that. In this process requires energy. So we use energy from the renewable resources. So thereby we will not be using any kind of a fossil fuels here. So we will not be using any fossil fuels and we use renewable energy for the process of electrolysis, and this process will further generate hydrogen, and that hydrogen is called as green hydrogen. So clear about this? So nodal agency is Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So this is the nodal agency because when you are planning to produce green hydrogen in a large scale, there must be an agency which should be monitoring and accrediting, regulating everything with respect to the green energy or green hydrogen. So therefore the Bureau of Energy Efficiency is that nodal agency, and this Bureau of Energy Efficiency is under Ministry of Power, and it is actually considered as nodal agency and which is responsible for accrediting agencies, monitoring, verifying and certifying the green hydrogen induction projects in India. So let's discuss today's practice question. Today's practice question was, consider the following statements about Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So this nuclear power plant is also in news because of Russia-Ukraine war. So let's go to the statements first. First statement says it is located in Russia and it is one of the oldest nuclear facilities in the world. Second statement says it is situated in Ukraine and ranks as the largest nuclear power plant in entire Europe. Okay, so these are two statements, and given below there are some options also. So choose the correct answer and also comment the correct answer in the comment section. So correct answer I will be providing you in the tomorrow's lecture. So one by one we'll try to discuss all important news articles. So firstly, there was an editorial in the Hindu newspaper. The editorial was about the Kachativu Island. So the author has been suggesting that the Kachativu Island dispute actually requires an out-of-box thinking from the government. Not just from the government but also from the other stakeholders who are involved in this dispute. So if I can talk to you briefly about this Kachativu Island. So this is where the Kachativu Island is located, at Park Bay, between India and Sri Lanka. So very briefly, historically, it is part of Raja of Ramanand's territory. The Kachativu Island was part of Raja of Ramanand's territory, historically speaking. And after that, Sri Lanka started claiming this island. owing to its strategic location, because if you look at the Kachativu Island, it is located in a strategic region between India and Sri Lanka. So because of that reason, from colonial times also, Sri Lanka started claiming this island. However, India has ceded this Kachativu Island in 1974 and 76 agreement by the then Indira Gandhi government to Sri Lanka. Okay, so that was considered as a larger agreement, and as part of the larger agreement, the Kachativu Island was ceded by the Indian government to the Sri Lanka. But now the Tamil fishermen are refusing to recognize this agreement, so ceding of this territory to Sri Lanka, and now they continue to venture into its waters nearby the Kachativu Island. However, please remember, the 74-76 agreement between India and Sri Lanka has also mandated that the fishermen can use this island for drying fish, for drying their nets, but they cannot use the waters around Kachativu Island for fishing. And that is where the issue comes, because when Indian fishermen are fishing in and around the waters of Kachativu Island, the Tamil Nadu Coast Guard or Tamil Nadu Navy either arresting them or started firing at them. So there are a lot of issues which have been faced by the Tamil Nadu fishermen because of this Kachativu Island. Now the author has been suggesting that there should be an out-of-box thinking for this particular dispute. Otherwise it would impact both India and Sri Lanka relations. Because remember, so we have already ceded this island to Sri Lanka. But now the government and the fishermen has been refusing to recognize that agreement which actually ceded the Kachativu Island to Sri Lanka. Now we'll start understand the basic nuances of it, what the author has been suggesting. So the author has been suggesting that on the one side of the story, both the governments, both Indian government and the Sri Lankan government, so they do not want to reopen the issue of Kachativu Island. So if you look at India, so India don't want to reopen this issue of Kachativu Island, even though several politicians are talking in favor of the Kachativu Island and against the agreement of 1974-76, which has actually ceded this island to Sri Lanka. So Indian government don't want to reopen this issue because it would have a larger implications. It would impact India's relations with Sri Lanka. And at the same time, historically, Sri Lanka has been claiming the sovereignty over the Kachativu Island or rights over the sovereignty island. So because of that reason, two countries don't want to reopen this issue. But the other side of the story is that Indian fishermen, particularly the Tamil fishermen, who will not easily give up the means of livelihood. When I say means of livelihood, why Kachativu Island is so important for the Indian fishermen? Because on the Indian continental shelf, the fish population has significantly declined because of unsustainable fishing practices by the Indian fishermen. So Indian fishermen very often venture into the Kachativu Island for better fish catch. And Kachativu Island and the in and around waters are known for a rich fish catch. So however, if they venture into fishing in the waters of Sri Lanka, so they will be either arrested or they will be a force would be used by the Sri Lankan Navy or Sri Lankan Coast Guard, and that has been affecting the livelihoods of Sri Lankan fishermen. So in fact, when there was no agreement earlier in 1974 and 76, at that point of time, Indian fishermen used to venture into the waters of the Kachativu Island or Sri Lankan waters. So they used to enjoy a better fish catch or rich fish catch during those times when there was no agreement. However, there are two interrelated issues that we must understand here in this context. The first interrelated issue is a unilateral scrapping of the agreement. For example, we have ceded the Kachativu Island to Sri Lanka. Okay, so we have ceded the Kachativu Island to Sri Lanka. Now we cannot unilaterally scrap any agreement that would have severe implications on the bilateral relations between India and Sri Lanka. So therefore, the author has been suggesting that unilateral scrapping of any bilateral agreement will have a profound consequences. So profound consequences not just with respect to India-Sri Lanka relations, but on the other hand, it will also have a negative impact on India and its neighboring countries. So now China on the other hand is looking for the right opportunity to make a deeper inroads into the India's neighbors. And this could also provide another opportunity for the Chinese side to build their power in those respective India's neighboring countries, and that would have severe security and strategic concerns for India also. So therefore, unilaterally scrapping any bilateral agreement would not be the right solution. That is what the author has been suggesting in this context. However, every bilateral agreements have a certain sanctity on their own, and at the same time they cannot be scrapped based on the whims and fancies of the different political parties which are in power at that point of time. For example, the then government has signed an agreement with another country and some other political party comes to power, and it cannot unilaterally scrap any agreement of the then government, because it is said that every bilateral agreement has a sanctity on its own. So that sanctity must be recognized and respected. So this is what the author has been suggesting, and at the same time the center should be urged to take immediate steps. So immediate steps in the sense that the center must address the challenges, the concerns that the fishermen of both sides, both the Indian side and the Sri Lankan side, have been facing while they venturing into fishing at the Park Strait. And that is a very important issue. Here we need to find one sustainable solution for the fishermen issue, because ultimately their livelihoods would get impacted by this. If we continues to drag this issue further, it ultimately impacts the livelihoods of the fishermen. So therefore the center must step in, and the center must also take certain interventions that would ensure the livelihood security of the fishermen. So apart from this, the author has also been talking about the peaceful solution to this Kachativu Island dispute. There is a need for a peaceful solution, and peaceful solution requires an out-of-box thinking from the government side. So this is what the author has been suggesting. So when we talk about any peaceful solution, the first solution that the author has been suggesting is that the island, get back the island of Kachativu on lease. Now if you look at the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, so Hambantota port was given to Chinese for a lease of 99 years. A lease of 99 years was given to the Chinese government. So in this case also, if India's interests are involved in the Kachativu Island, rather than unilaterally scrapping any agreement, India can take back the Kachativu Island on lease. So if India can take the island on lease, then it will not impact the sovereignty of Sri Lanka, the first thing. It will also benefit Sri Lanka, because we are not taking the Kachativu Island through any other military means, through forceful means. Rather, we are taking this island on lease. So therefore, it will benefit Sri Lanka by not violating their sovereignty. And at the same time, it would also help meet India's long-term interests, because India's fishermen can venture into fishing in the waters nearby this Kachativu Island, surrounding waters, for the purpose of fishing as a result of lease in perpetuity. So here perpetuity means lease for a permanent period of time. And the second suggestion that the author has been giving is that allowing Indian fishermen to fish in Sri Lankan waters up to 5 nautical miles. So they must be allowed to fish in 5 nautical miles in the Sri Lankan waters. So earlier also there was a precedent for this that was set by the earlier governments, both India and Sri Lankan governments. So therefore we must be guided in this precedent. Okay, so under 1976 agreement, the Sri Lankan fishermen were permitted to fish near the wedge bank at Kanyakumari. So it has allowed the Sri Lankan fishermen to fish at the Kanyakumari, or at the wedge bank near Kanyakumari, for around 3 years. So such arrangement can also be made, so that will allow the Indian fishermen to venture into fishing in those Sri Lankan waters up to the 5 nautical miles, because ultimately it involves the livelihood security of the fishermen. So therefore, the livelihood security of the fishermen should not be impacted in this context. And after that, we need to talk about introduction of trawling in India. So it is said that in the year 1960s and 1970s, India has faced a severe foreign exchange deficit. So in order to meet the foreign exchange deficit, the then governments have been extended a lot of incentives for certain sectors which have been earning the forex reserves. So one such sector which has been earning a lot of forex was shrimp sector. So in order to ensure the fishermen have a better shrimp catch, the government has extended various incentives to these fishermen. So one such incentive was allowing trawling and more advanced fishing boats. So that the fishermen will have a better fish catch, and that will help significantly boost our foreign exchanges. So that has resulted in the advent of bottom trawlers in India. However, the problem is that when India fishermen venture into fishing with these bottom trawlers, so they can cause incalculable harm to the entire seabed. So how they cause incalculable harm to the entire seabed? So you can see here clearly. So these nets are virtually dragged on the seabed. So when they are dragged on the seabed, it harms the existing aquatic ecosystem. So that is the main concern here using these bottom trawling. So Indian fishermen are heavily using these bottom trawling methods. So the bottom trawlers swept away everything from the seabed, resulting in no fish being available on the Indian side of the Pak Bay. So since no fish is available on the Indian side of the Pak Bay, now the fishermen are venturing into the Sri Lankan side for better fish catch using these bottom trawlers. However, the concern of the Sri Lanka is that the Sri Lanka fishermen are not allowed to use these bottom trawlers. So the bottom trawlers are banned in Sri Lanka. So if Indian fishermen are venturing into the Sri Lankan waters with these bottom trawlers, of course that could deplete the existing fish population, and at the same time it will also impact the livelihoods of Sri Lankan fishermen. Okay, so because Sri Lankan fishermen are not allowed to use these bottom trawlers in those sensitive regions. But on the other hand, Indian fishermen are venturing into the Sri Lankan waters with these bottom trawlers. So that significantly depletes the marine population or fish catch, and that will also impact the Sri Lankan fishermen. So that was the concern for Sri Lanka here. So Indian fishermen have to enter Sri Lankan waters to fish because of depletion of the fish in Indian side of the Bay of Bengal. However, now Sri Lankan fishermen started complaining about Indian fishermen entering into their Sri Lankan waters with these bottom trawlers. So these bottom trawlers, what they do, they destroy the seabed. You can see here, they can destroy the seabed here. So however, as I have already told you, these bottom trawlers are actually not allowed or banned in Sri Lanka. So after that, there is a need for bold solutions or bold decisions from the government side. So the author has provided two major and two important suggestions here. So the first suggestion is that the Pak Bay, so Pak Bay is also the region which is very close to the Kachativu Island between India and Sri Lanka. So the Pak Bay should not be considered as a barrier between India and Sri Lanka. Rather, it should be considered as a bridge between India and Sri Lanka, and that is the way we can further strengthen our bilateral relations. Secondly, we must convert the existing Pak Bay from being a contested territory to a collective heritage or common heritage between India and Sri Lanka. And that is very important to build the strength or build and further strengthen the relations between India and Sri Lanka. However, in order to make sure that this Pak Bay is not a contested territory but a common heritage, so we need to adopt a set of measures, and those measures are very important, and that is what the author has been suggesting. So the first essential prerequisite for Government of India to ban all fishing equipment which are banned in Sri Lanka. So thereby it provides a level playing field for Indian fishermen and Sri Lankan fishermen, because understand, as I have already told you, that Indian fishermen has been using the bottom trawlers. So they have been using bottom trawlers. But on the other hand, the Sri Lankan fishermen are not allowed to use these bottom trawlers. So therefore, one suggestion that the author has been giving is that ban the bottom trawlers of Indian fishermen who venture into the fishing into Sri Lankan waters. So thereby providing a level playing field between Indian fishermen and also the Sri Lankan fishermen. So that would reduce the contestation here. And secondly, there can be a formula also. So the formula is that the Sri Lankan fishermen can catch the fish in the Park Bay for 3 days, and Indian fishermen can catch the fish in remaining 3 days, and 1 day should be given as a holiday, fishing holiday. Okay, so this is another formula that the author has been suggesting here. And the second suggestion that the author has been giving is that we need to encourage the Tamil fishermen of both countries, because in Sri Lanka also there were Tamilians and India also there were Tamilians. So we need to encourage the Tamil fishermen of both countries to meet regularly and form cooperative societies and venture into the deep sea mining, deep sea fishing. So these are some solutions or some suggestions which could address the existing problem, and it will also make India and Sri Lanka enjoy good relations, or we could further strengthen our existing relations. So make sure that these differences would not escalate further, because if differences are escalated further, that will significantly impact India-Sri Lanka relations in the future. So this is what the author has been suggesting with respect to the Kachativu Island. So the next important news article is with respect to the One Health approach. So we all know that the One Health approach has gained a lot of significance and a lot of prominence, especially after the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. We all knew that the COVID-19 pandemic is a zoonotic disease. I hope all of you know about zoonotic disease. Zoonotic disease is actually a disease which spreads from animals to human beings. Animals to human beings. So those diseases are known as the zoonotic diseases. So the examples of zoonotic disease is a rabies is a zoonotic disease, and Nipah virus in Kerala is an example of these zoonotic diseases. So those diseases which are spreading from animals to human beings are known as the zoonotic diseases. So in order to deal with these zoonotic diseases, the World Health Organization has come up with a formula called One Health approach. So in One Health approach, we take care of the health of human beings and health of the environment, and at the same time the health of the animals also. Okay, so this is a comprehensive, holistic and integrated approach where we are looking at the health of different stakeholders, and that is very important here. Now, why in recent times there is an increased spread of zoonotic diseases? So that is mainly because of increased animal contact, and at the same time deforestation, habitat fragmentation, habitat loss of these animals. All these factors have been the major causes or major leading factors of increased zoonotic diseases. Okay, so we must deal with these zoonotic diseases, otherwise we must face another COVID-19 like pandemic in a very near future. So what was the context of this particular editorial? So the context was a recent decision by the cabinet on National One Health Mission. So that the government has recently launched National One Health Mission. So this National One Health Mission has actually marked a significant step in addressing the interdependence between human beings, animals, and the environment. Okay, so that is the overall aim and objective of One Health approach. So we must make sure that there is an interdependence between human health, animal health, and the environment health. So we must take care of the healthcare needs of all those stakeholders. and especially this policy or mission was launched by the government in the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic and other zoonotic diseases. So please understand certain goals of the National One Health Mission. So it has certain goals of on its own. So one such goal is integrated disease surveillance. So integrated disease surveillance is very important to understand the outbreak of new diseases and their potency to affect the individuals or the contagious nature of those diseases. So therefore, it focuses on certain strategies. So the strategies for integrated disease surveillance, joint outbreak response, and coordinated research and development. And apart from that, it also involves seamless information sharing to control routine and pandemic diseases. So there are certain routine diseases also. Okay, so for example, we can call rabies a routine disease. And however, infections like COVID-19 can be considered as a pandemics. So all these strategies would certainly help us to deal with these routine as well as the pandemic diseases and those diseases affecting animals, human beings, and also the environment as well. However, addressing these diseases, the animal diseases, human diseases, diseases which are prevalent in the environment, so that not only affecting not only humans, so those diseases which are affecting not only humans but also livestock and wildlife, there are certain diseases so which also in fact infect the animals and livestock. So, for example, foot and mouth disease, lumpy skin disease. So lumpy skin disease has actually affecting the cattle population and foot and mouth disease also. So it is very important because when livestock population is infected with those diseases, it impacts their productivity and also trade and conservation efforts from the government side. However, we must take adequate measures with respect to the pandemic preparedness. Okay, so here in this mission, One Health Mission, the pandemic preparedness is actually emphasized, highlighting there is a need for strong research and development. So strong research and development will in turn help us in manufacturing, designing vaccines and therapeutics and new diagnostics for quick diagnosis of any such diseases. So that actually helps us deal with those diseases in a much more effective and efficient manner so that we can prevent any such pandemics in near future. And after that, creation of a network of laboratories was also one of the goals and objectives of National One Health Mission. So these national network under this mission actually set up a high risk pathogen laboratories across different parts. Okay, so there are certain pathogens which have a higher risk of infecting human beings and infecting the animal and wildlife populations. Okay, so they will be established at different locations and they will facilitate better disease outbreak response. So when we get to know about those pathogens and their effectiveness, then we can immediately take the responsive measures, targeted responsive measures, and that could help us prevent the large scale outbreak of any disease. So that is the first advantage of creation of any network of laboratories. And after that, we must optimize the existing resources, and there is a need for collaboration with different stakeholders who are involved in this field. So when I say collaboration, the collaboration not within the country but cross-country collaborations, cross-institutional collaborations, interdepartmental and interministerial collaborations are very important to deal with any such pandemics in the future, because it enables the research optimization and collaboration between different departments. Thereby, we can expect a greater response for diseases like Nipah disease that involve a multiple species. And after that, One Health is being recognized as a global topic, right? So it means that we have recognized One Health as a global topic. So it is in fact endorsed by organizations like G20. So G20 groups have already acknowledged, endorsed the One Health approach under the India's presidency. Remember, India was the president of G20 group in the year 2023. So this One Health approach has been emphasizing on certain factors or certain aspects such as collaboration in areas like surveillance, capacity building, setting up international networks, and One Health institutions. All these factors are being increasingly emphasized here. Okay, so this is about the One Health mission, National One Health mission. And next important news article, one of the climate research agencies of the European Union have been saying that so hottest March in history in 2024. So in the entire human history, so it is considered as last March was considered as hottest March. So that is said by European Union climate body. So we all know that the temperatures have been increasing every day. And in India, we are going to experience summer in this month and next month also. So in this context, people have been suffering a lot with the increased temperatures, and increased temperatures very often triggering heat wave like conditions. However, this year it is expected that the World Meteorological Organization and Indian Meteorological Organization have also already warned of severe and intense heat wave. But this year in April and May, we are going to experience we are going to have the general elections. So thereby we can see a larger impact of the heat wave on the people who are part of this election campaign, on people who are casting their vote standing on long queues. So the world has experienced a warmest March ever due to the combined effect of El Nino and human caused climate change. So I hope all of you have some basic idea about the El Nino. So El Nino, when I say El Nino is actually the temperature differences between the Eastern Pacific Ocean and the Western Pacific Ocean. So the El Nino as a phenomena influences rainfall, and it will also cause severe drought in countries like India, Indonesia and Australia, and heavy rainfall over the western coast of South America. So therefore, when we have a severe rainfall, we can expect below normal or weak southwest monsoon. So please remember, southwest monsoon has been contributing to around 70% of the total monsoon in India. And El Nino will have a negative effect on the southwest monsoon, and that can be resulted in a lesser rainfall or below normal rainfall over the Indian subcontinent. However, the combined effect of El Nino and human induced climate change has resulted in highest temperatures, soaring temperatures every month. So in fact, March is recognized as one of the highest temperatures, highest temperatures in the human history. Okay, it is also said that it is the 10th consecutive month since June last year to set new temperature records. So every month has been recording new highest temperatures. However, the climate scientists have been suggesting that countries must act now. Countries need to limit the global average temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So please remember, we have Paris Agreement, right? So we have Paris Agreement. So this Paris Agreement has actually aimed to reduce the global temperatures by 1.5 degrees Celsius or maximum 2 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial levels. However, there are a lot of climate research institutes such as International Panel on Climate Change, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So they have been suggesting that the global surface temperatures have already reached beyond or around 1.15 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial levels. So this actually indicating that we are not doing enough to control the climate change or to control increasing global temperatures. So it is also said that the continuous warming of the earth will have a lot of negative consequences such as wildfires, heat waves, increased intensity of floods, cyclones and droughts in different parts of the world. And please also understand, the people who are more vulnerable to these disasters, the climate induced disasters, are poor and marginalized sections of the society. Remember, yesterday also we have discussed that women are more vulnerable to these climate induced disasters. So the warming is considered the reason behind the recent or record number of droughts, wildfires and floods that took place worldwide. So however, there are a number of factors which have been contributing for the increasing of the greenhouse gases. So one is increased concentration of greenhouse gases is because of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Because please understand, we have been using fossil fuels excessively. And these fossil fuels very often release carbon into the atmosphere, and carbon is a greenhouse gas. So thereby increased carbon concentration in the atmosphere has been increasing the climate change and global warming. However, the Indian Meteorological Department has already issued a warning with respect to the heat wave like conditions that would prevail in India in April and June months. Now in India we are going to see elections, and this month and next month. So therefore 1 billion people are expected to exercise their franchise. They'll cast their vote during the 7-phase general elections. So therefore this will further highlight or increase the concerns about the vulnerability of heat wave like conditions. Similarly, I have already told you that the heat or temperature anomalies between the Eastern Pacific Ocean and the Western Pacific Ocean is the reason for El Nino. So in fact, El Nino also impacts India's southwest monsoon. So this is the southwest monsoon. El Nino also impacts India's southwest monsoon because southwest monsoon contributes around 70% of India's annual rainfall. And this annual rainfall is critical for various sectors, particularly the agriculture sector, and increasing the rural demand also. Because it is also said that the southwest monsoon has been accounting for about 14% of the India's total GDP, and it also employs more than 1.4 billion population. So it is said that increased frequency of these El Nino like events, particularly because of human induced climate change, will severely impact southwest monsoon of India, and it impacts agriculture sector, India's GDP, and also the employment at different levels. Okay, so this is what the article has been talking about. And let's look at another important news article, that is India to send new defense attaches to several missions in Africa. So this essentially means that India has been sending those military officers or defense officers to different countries to enhance India's strategic partnership with those countries. Especially the military partnerships, and at the same time further boost the export of Indian arms to those countries. So if we can go into the details, India has begun to post the military defense attaches to several new countries, and it is considered as one of the biggest move to expand the strategic ties with key regions across the globe, as well as push arms exports. Okay, so we on the one hand build strong strategic partners with all the countries where we have these defense attaches, and at the same time we will be able to push the arms exports to those countries also. So please understand, we are making we are trying to become produce a lot of indigenous defense products, and at the same time it is also very important that we have a strong export market of our defense products, along with we able to meet our domestic requirements. So because of that reason, India has been looking for different countries to export its defense products. So it is said that around 15 to 16 new officers from Army, Navy and Air Force are being posted in different countries. So they include Poland, Armenia, Tanzania, Mozambique, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast and Philippines. So recently, remember, Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also had a visit to Philippines, and Philippines also had an issue with respect to the South China Sea with China. So therefore, sending a defense expert or defense personnel to Philippines is also assumed a lot of significance. So it is also said that India has made some rationalization with respect to deployment of these defense officials. So rationalization means earlier there were few embassies such as Russia, UK and France. And rationalization means that if there are excess employees, so those employees would be posted in other countries rather than having a larger presence in these foreign embassies. So that is known as rationalization, cutting down of the number of military officials posted at the large missions. So after that, the special area of interest is Africa for India. So why? Because if you look at China, China has already made a deeper inroads into Africa. And if you compare India's influence with the Chinese influence, there's no comparison between India and China here. So India also wanted to significantly increase its influence in Africa, and it is also expected that this deployment would certainly benefit India by further strengthening the strategic relations with African countries, and at the same time we can look for the export markets within Africa to export our foreign goods. So India is now trying to export the indigenous Tejas fighters, Pinaka multi-launch rocket systems, BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles and Akash air defense missiles to the African countries. Okay, so after that we should also talk about the South China Sea issue and China's aggressive behavior, and the Asian countries, because Asian countries are 10 countries in the Southeast Asian region and they are very concerned about Chinese aggressiveness and assertiveness in the South China Sea. Okay, so therefore with an eye on Chinese aggressive behavior in the Indo-Pacific, now South China Sea is also part of the larger Indo-Pacific. Okay, so Indo-Pacific including the South China Sea, India has also been steadily stepping up its military ties with all the Asian countries, and sending such officers or officials to Philippines is one such step from the Indian side. So recently we also knew that a $375 million a contract was signed between India and Philippines with respect to 3 anti-ship coastal batteries of the BrahMos missile. Okay, so this deal was signed in January 2022. So not just Philippines, there were a number of countries where we are looking to export our BrahMos missiles, BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles, and even the Tejas fighter jets. So India wants the first ever BrahMos export order to pave the way for more such deals with the Philippines as well as other 10 Asian countries like Indonesia, Vietnam and Malaysia. Okay, so for this particular purpose, India has sent those defense personnel to different other countries. Okay, so that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. And if you like our work, please try to like our video and also subscribe our YouTube channel. Okay, thank you.